Dramily.com, unlimited drama series.
Chapter 1. The Perfect Life Shattered. They say marriage is a partnership. So is organized crime. I'm Alan Mercer, 40 years old. And until 3 months ago, I thought I had it all figured out. Nice house in Westfield Heights. Decent job as a copywriter at Henderson & Associates. And a wife who could charm the paint off a fence post when she wanted to. Vanessa was ambitious, ruthless in business, and had this way of making you feel like you were either with her or roadkill. Should have paid more attention to that last part. "Dad, you're doing that thing again," Mia said, sliding into the kitchen with that particular brand of teenage exasperation that could cut glass. At 15, she'd inherited her mother's sharp tongue, but thankfully aimed it at more deserving targets. "What thing?" I asked, though I knew exactly what thing. The staring into space while coffee gets cold thing. The wondering where it all went wrong thing. The brooding thing. "You look like someone told you Santa isn't real." She grabbed an apple from the counter and bit into it with theatrical emphasis, which, by the way, I figured out when I was 7. "You're not exactly subtle with the wrapping paper." "Your mother's working late again," I said, which wasn't really an answer but felt like one. Mia's expression shifted slightly. She was smart enough to read between the lines, old enough to notice patterns. "She's been working late a lot lately." "Yeah, big project at the office. Must be really big." The thing about teenagers is, they see everything and pretend they don't. Adults see nothing and pretend they do. It's a hell of a system we've got going. Vanessa had been coming home after midnight for the past 2 months. Always with the same story. Client meetings, strategy sessions, urgent deadlines. Her phone buzzed constantly with texts she'd shielded from view, and she'd started taking calls in the garage. When I asked about it, she'd get that look, the one that said I was being unreasonable for expecting basic courtesy in my own marriage. "Dad?" Mia's voice snapped me back to the present. "Sorry, kiddo, what were you saying?" "I wasn't saying anything. You were doing the staring thing again." She finished her apple and tossed the core in the trash with perfect aim. "But since we're having this awkward moment, can I ask you something?" "Shoot. Are you and Mom getting divorced?" The question hit like a slap. Not because it was unexpected, but because hearing it out loud made it real in a way that late-night suspicions and cold shoulders couldn't. "Why would you ask that?" "Because you both act like you're living in the same house by accident. And because Mom's been staying at Aunt Linda's every weekend for the past month, which she thinks I don't know about, but I'm not an idiot." Aunt Linda, Vanessa's sister, who lived in a downtown condo and had never met a drama she couldn't escalate. Linda had opinions about everything, and the social awareness of a brick through a window. If Vanessa was confiding in Linda, things were worse than I thought. "Your mom and I are working through some things," I said, which was technically true, if you counted working through as avoiding until one of us snaps. That's adult speak for yes, but I don't want to talk about it." "When did you get so smart?" "I've always been smart. You just started paying attention." She grabbed her backpack and headed for the door. "I'm staying at Jessica's tonight. Mom already said yes." She did." "When?" This morning. She left a note." "Of course she did." Vanessa communicated through post-it notes now, like we were roommates splitting utilities instead of people who'd promised to love each other through better and worse. After Mia left, the house felt enormous and empty. I wandered from room to room, looking for signs of the life we'd built together. Wedding photos on the mantle, vacation souvenirs on shelves, Vanessa's books scattered around the living room. Everything looked normal, but it felt like walking through a museum exhibit. Marriage, circa 2010 to 2023. My phone buzzed. Text from Vanessa, "Working late again. Don't wait up. Mia and M. Chloe. Maynon." I stared at the message for a long time, then typed back, "Okay, Mia and M. Chloe." But it wasn't okay. Nothing about this was okay. I'd met Vanessa 12 years ago at a company mixer. She was working in sales at TechFlow Solutions, and I was freelancing, picking up copywriting gigs wherever I could find them. She was magnetic in that dangerous way that makes smart men do stupid things. We talked all night about everything and nothing, and by the time the bar closed, I was completely gone. She was ambitious from day one, always pushing, always climbing, always looking for the next opportunity. I admired that about her, even when it meant missed dinners and weekend work sessions. Success mattered to Vanessa, and I wanted her to succeed. But somewhere along the way, I stopped being part of her success story and started being an obstacle to it. The change had been gradual. Fewer conversations about our days, less interest in my work, more time spent on her phone, even when we were together. She'd started dressing differently, too, more expensive clothes, more attention to details that had never mattered to her before. When I complimented her on a new dress, she'd brush it off like my opinion didn't count. "You wouldn't understand," she'd say. "It's about professional image. Professional image, right." I poured myself a beer and sat on the couch, staring at the TV without turning it on. The house was too quiet, too empty, too full of questions I didn't want to answer. My phone rang. Greg Morrison, my oldest friend, and the only person I knew who could make a computer do tricks that bordered on magic. "You sound like hell," he said, without preamble. "Thanks for the pep talk. No, I'm serious. When's the last time you left that house for something that wasn't work or groceries?" "I leave the house. To go where?" I thought about it. "The hardware store. Last weekend." "Jesus, Alan, you're turning into a hermit. Come out with me tonight. There's a new place downtown. Good beer, terrible music. It'll be perfect." "I can't. Vanessa's working late and what? You're going to sit at home waiting for her to remember you exist?" Greg's voice softened. "Look, man, I don't know what's going on with you two, but whatever it is, sitting alone in the dark isn't going to fix it." He was right, of course. Greg usually was, which was annoying but useful. "Fine, but I'm driving myself." "Fair enough." Murphy's Pub on 5th Street, 8 o'clock. Murphy's was exactly as advertised. Good beer, terrible music, and the kind of crowd that minded its own business. Greg was already there when I arrived, holding court at the bar with some story that had the bartender laughing. "There he is," Greg said, slapping me on the back. "The infamous Alan Mercer, emerging from his cave. Shut up and buy me a drink." We found a table in the back, away from the worst of the music. Greg was a good friend, the kind who knew when to joke and when to listen. We'd known each other since college, survived each other's dating disasters, stood up at each other's weddings. If anyone was going to call me on my bullshit, it was him. "So," he said after we'd settled in with our beers. "Want to talk about it?" "About what?" "About whatever's eating you alive. You look like someone told you your dog died, except you don't have a dog." I took a long pull from my beer, buying time. "Vanessa's having an affair." The words hung in the air between us like smoke. Saying them out loud made them real in a way that suspicion couldn't. Greg didn't look surprised. "You sure?" "Pretty sure. All the classic signs. Working late, secretive phone calls, new clothes, less interest in anything happening at home." I shrugged. "Either she's having an affair or she's joined the CIA. Any idea who?" "I think it's her boss, Rick Foster." Greg made a face like he'd tasted something sour. "The guy with the BMW and the ego problem, that's the one." I'd met Rick exactly 3 times, all at company functions. He was the kind of man who wore expensive suits and cheaper morals, who talked too loud and stood too close and made sure everyone knew how important he was. Married, 2 kids, the kind of smile that made you want to count your fingers after shaking his hand. "What are you going to do about it?" Greg asked. "I don't know. Confront her, I guess. Ask for the truth. And if she lies, then I'll know where I stand." Greg nodded slowly. "You want some advice? Do I have a choice?" "Don't confront her yet. Get proof first. Because if you're wrong, you'll look paranoid and jealous. And if you're right," he paused. "Well, if you're right, you'll want to be prepared." "Prepared for what?" "For whatever comes next." We drank in silence for a while, watching the crowd ebb and flow around us. Normal people, living normal lives, dealing with normal problems. I envied them. "There's something else," I said finally. "What?" "I think she wants me to find out. The way she's been acting, it's like she's daring me to figure it out, like she wants a confrontation." "Why would she want that?" "Because then it's my fault. I'm the jealous husband who couldn't trust her. I'm the one who destroyed the marriage." I finished my beer and set the glass down harder than necessary. "She gets to be the victim." Greg studied my face. "You're not as naive as you pretend to be. 12 years of marriage will do that to you." When I got home that night, Vanessa's car was in the driveway. I found her in the kitchen, still in her her work clothes, eating leftover Chinese food straight from the container. "How was your night?" she asked without looking up. "Fine. Yours?" "Long. Productive." She took another bite of lo mein. "We're launching a new product line. Lots of strategy sessions. With Rick?" She looked up then, and for just a moment, I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt? Annoyance? Amusement? "With the whole team," she said. "Rick, myself, the development group. It's a big project. Sounds like it." We stood there looking at each other across the kitchen island. Two people who'd shared a bed for 12 years and suddenly had nothing to say. She was still beautiful. More beautiful than when I'd met her, if anything. Success agreed with her. But looking at her now, I felt like I was looking at a stranger. "I'm going to bed," she said finally. "I'll be up in a minute." But I wasn't. I stayed downstairs until I heard her shower running, then made myself comfortable on the couch. It was easier than lying next to her, pretending everything was normal. At some point during the night, I made a decision. Greg was right. I needed proof. But more than that, I needed to understand what I was dealing with. Because if Vanessa wanted a war, she was going to get one. She just wasn't going to like how it ended. Chapter 2. Calculated Ruin. The First Moves. The next morning, Vanessa was gone before I woke up. Another post-it note on the coffee maker. "Early meeting. See you tonight." I crumpled the note and threw it away. We were communicating like strangers now, and apparently that was fine with her. At work, I couldn't concentrate. Henderson and Associates was the kind of mid-sized agency that specialized in boring but profitable accounts. Insurance companies, medical device manufacturers, regional banks. I'd been writing copy for them for 8 years, long enough to do the job in my sleep, which was good because my mind was elsewhere. "You look terrible," said Janet Morrison, the office manager and Greg's wife. Janet had the supernatural ability to read people's moods from across a crowded room, which made her invaluable in her job and dangerous at parties. "Thanks. Really needed to hear that today." "I'm serious, Alan. When's the last time you got a decent night's sleep?" "Define decent." She perched on the edge of my desk, which was Janet's way of saying we were about to have a conversation whether I wanted to or not. "Greg told me about last night," she said. "Of course he did. He's worried about you. So am I." Janet and I had a complicated relationship. She was protective of Greg, which meant she was suspicious of anyone who might drag him into drama. But she'd also known Vanessa longer than I had. They'd worked together briefly before Vanessa moved to TechFlow, and she'd never quite warmed to her. "What do you think I should do?" I asked. "About Vanessa, honestly?" Janet glanced around to make sure no one was listening. "I think you should be careful. Vanessa's not the type to go down quietly." Meaning she's smart, she's connected, and she's used to getting what she wants. If you're planning to confront her about this, you better make sure you're ready for whatever she throws back. It was the second warning I'd gotten in 12 hours. Either my friends thought I was weak, or they knew something I didn't. "Any suggestions?" "Document everything. Dates, times, conversations. If this goes south, you'll want a paper trail." She stood up and smoothed her skirt. "And Alan, don't do anything stupid." "Like what?" "Like following her around or breaking into her phone. That kind of thing never ends well." After Janet left, I sat staring at my computer screen, thinking about paper trails and documentation. She was right. If I was going to do this, I needed to be smart about it. I opened a new document and started typing. Monday, October 23rd. Vanessa claims to be working late. Returns home at 12:47 a.m. Says she was in strategy meetings. Phone buzzes constantly during dinner. Takes call in garage. Tuesday, October 24th. Another early meeting. Gone before 7 a.m. Mia mentions Vanessa staying at Linda's on weekends. It felt clinical, reducing my marriage to bullet points and timestamps. But Janet was right. If this was going to get ugly, I needed evidence. My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. "Is this Alan Mercer?" I stared at the message for a moment, then typed back. "Who's asking?" "My name is Beth Foster. I think we should talk." Beth Foster, Rick's wife. My heart started pounding. This was either very good news or very bad news, and I couldn't decide which. "About what?" I typed. "About our spouses. Can you meet me for coffee? Today?" I looked around the office, at my half-finished projects and looming deadlines. Then I thought about Vanessa's post-it notes and midnight strategy sessions. Where and when? Starbucks on Maple Street. 1 hour. I'd seen Beth Foster exactly twice, both times at TechFlow company parties. She was Rick's opposite in every way, quiet where he was loud, thoughtful where he was impulsive, genuine where he was calculating. She was also prettier than her husband deserved, with the kind of understated elegance that came from good breeding rather than good shopping. I found her at a corner table, nursing a latte, and looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. She was younger than I'd remembered, maybe 35, with shoulder-length brown hair and the kind of tired eyes that came from not sleeping. "Thank you for coming," she said as I sat down. "I have to admit, I'm curious," she smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I imagine you are. This isn't exactly normal behavior for me." "What isn't?" "Reaching out to strangers, asking questions I'm not sure I want answered." She took a sip of her latte. "But I think we might be in similar situations. Which is, I think my husband is having an affair with your wife." There it was, the words I'd been dreading and expecting in equal measure. "What makes you think that?" I asked. "Same things that probably made you suspicious. Late nights, secretive phone calls, new clothes, less interest in what's happening at home." She paused. "Plus, I hired a private investigator." That caught me off guard. "You did?" 3 weeks ago. I got tired of wondering
Your ex, the one you said you blocked, 300 messages this month.
He contacted me for— Watch more on Grammarly.com.
and decided to find out for sure. She reached into her purse and pulled out a manila envelope. "These were taken last Tuesday." I opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside were a dozen photographs, all in color, all crystal clear. Rick and Vanessa having lunch at an upscale restaurant downtown. Rick and Vanessa in the parking garage of her office building, standing close enough to share breath. Rick and Vanessa kissing in the front seat of his BMW. The last photo showed them entering a hotel together. I stared at the images for a long time, feeling something cold and hard settle in my chest. It was one thing to suspect your wife was cheating. It was another thing entirely to see proof. "How long?" I asked. "The investigator thinks about 3 months, maybe longer." 3 months! While I'd been writing copy for insurance companies and worrying about Mia's grades and planning our anniversary dinner, my wife had been screwing her boss in hotel rooms. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked. "Because I want them both to pay for what they've done. And I think you might feel the same way." I looked at her more carefully. Beth Foster wasn't the quiet, passive woman I'd taken her for. There was steel underneath the polite exterior. "What did you have in mind?" "I don't know yet. But Rick thinks he's smarter than everyone else, and your wife thinks she's untouchable. They're both wrong." She finished her latte and set the cup down with a soft click. "I think we could help each other." "How?" "You know Vanessa's weaknesses. I know Rick's. Between the two of us, we might be able to make them both very sorry they decided to blow up our lives." I thought about Vanessa's post-it notes and midnight strategy sessions. I thought about Mia asking if we were getting divorced. I thought about 12 years of marriage reduced to police small talk and sleeping on the couch. "What's the first step?" Beth smiled, and this time it did reach her eyes. "We make them think they're getting away with it. Let them get comfortable, maybe even careless, and then we destroy them both." We exchanged phone numbers and agreed to stay in touch. As I walked back to my car, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Purpose. Vanessa wanted to play games? Fine. But she'd picked the wrong opponent. That evening, I got home to find Vanessa in the living room, going through mail. She looked up when I walked in, and for a moment I saw her the way she used to be. My wife, my partner, the woman I'd fallen in love with at a company mixer 12 years ago. Then I remembered the photographs. "How was work?" she asked. "Productive. You?" "Same. We're making real progress on the new product line." She sorted through a stack of catalogs and credit card offers. "Rick thinks we might be ready to launch by Christmas." "Rick thinks a lot of things." She looked up sharply. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Just that he seems to have opinions about everything. He's the department head, Alan. Having opinions is part of his job." "Right, of course." We looked at each other across the living room, and I wondered if she could see the change in me. If she could tell that I knew. "I'm making dinner," she said finally. "Pasta okay?" "Sure." I watched her move around the kitchen, efficient and graceful, the same way she'd done it 1,000 times before. But now I knew she was thinking about Rick Foster while she chopped vegetables, wondering when she could see him again, planning their next hotel room encounter. The cold, hard thing in my chest grew a little larger. "Mia called," Vanessa said as she stirred the sauce. "She's staying at Jessica's again tonight." "Again?" She's 15, Alan. She'd rather be with her friends than listening to us pretend everything's normal. The honesty of it caught me off guard. Is that what we're doing? Pretending? Vanessa stopped stirring and looked at me. For a moment, I thought she might tell me the truth. Confess everything, apologize, ask for another chance. Instead, she said, I think we both know this isn't working. This? Us. Our marriage. This whole situation. What situation is that? Don't be dense, Alan. We barely talk anymore. We don't sleep in the same bed. We're like strangers living in the same house. And whose fault is that? Does it matter? The point is, we're both miserable. I set down my beer and looked at her carefully. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe we should consider our options. Options like what? Like separation. Maybe divorce. There it was. The conversation I'd been dreading, happening exactly the way I'd expected it to. Vanessa taking control, framing the narrative, making it seem like a mutual decision instead of the result of her affair. Is there someone else? I asked. She didn't even blink. No, Alan, there's no one else. This is about us, about what we've become. The lie came so easily that I almost admired her for it. Almost. I see. I think it would be better for everyone, especially Mia. Kids can tell when their parents are unhappy. Right, for Mia. We ate dinner in silence, two people who'd run out of things to say to each other. Or rather, two people who couldn't say what they were really thinking. After dinner, Vanessa went upstairs to take a shower. I cleaned up the kitchen, loaded the dishwasher, and tried to process what had just happened. My wife had just asked for a divorce without mentioning that she was sleeping with her boss. She was going to leave me for Rick Foster and make it look like a mutual decision. The cold, hard thing in my chest crystallized into something sharper. I pulled out my phone and texted Beth Foster. We need to talk, soon. Her response came back immediately. Tomorrow. Same place, same time. I spent the rest of the evening on the couch, listening to Vanessa move around upstairs, thinking about photographs and private investigators and mutual destruction. Vanessa wanted a divorce? Fine. But she was going to get a lot more than she bargained for. Chapter 3. Escalation. The web tightens. Beth was already waiting when I arrived at Starbucks the next afternoon. She looked different, more focused, more determined. Like she'd spent the night planning. You look like someone who's made a decision, she said as I sat down. Vanessa asked for a divorce last night. Did she mention Rick? No. She made it sound like we just grew apart. Natural causes. Beth nodded grimly. Rick's been talking about needing space for the past month. I think they're planning to leave us both and make it look like coincidence. How thoughtful of them. The question is, what are we going to do about it? I'd been thinking about that all night. I want to know everything. Every detail of their affair. Every lie they've told. Every plan they've made. And then I want to destroy them both so completely that they'll wish they'd never met. Beth smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. I was hoping you'd say that. She pulled out a notebook and flipped it open. Pages of handwritten notes, dates, times, observations. I've been documenting everything for 3 weeks, she said. Rick's patterns, his habits, his weaknesses. He's not as smart as he thinks he is. What kind of weaknesses? He's been embezzling from the company. Small amounts, but consistent. He thinks no one will notice because he's the department head. She flipped a page. He's also been sexually harassing his assistant, Chloe Martinez. She hasn't reported it because she needs the job, but she's been keeping records. How do you know all this? Because I hired the best private investigator in the city, and I told her money was no object. Beth's smile got sharper. Rick doesn't know it yet, but he's about to have a very bad month. I thought about Vanessa, confident and calculating. Sure, she was smarter than everyone else. What about Vanessa? I asked. What about her? She's not just going to roll over. If we're going after Rick, she'll fight back. And she's got resources. Like what? She's got friends, connections, a good reputation at work. She knows how to manipulate people, how to control narratives. I paused. She's also got dirt on me. What kind of dirt? Nothing criminal, but she knows my weaknesses, my insecurities. She knows exactly which buttons to push to make me look unstable or jealous or vindictive. Beth considered this. Then we'll have to be smarter than both of them. How? By making them think they're winning right up until the moment we destroy them. We spent the next hour planning. Beth had resources, money, connections, and a private investigator who specialized in corporate malfeasance. I had inside knowledge of Vanessa's habits and psychology. Together, we might actually be able to pull this off. First step, Beth said, is to let them think they're getting away with it. No confrontations, no accusations, no suspicious behavior. We act like the clueless spouses they think we are. And then we start gathering ammunition. Financial records, communications, witness statements, everything we'll need to destroy them both in court and in public. In public? Alan, they're not just cheating on us. They're planning to humiliate us, abandon us, and make us look like the bad guys. Turnabout is fair play. I thought about Mia, about how this would affect her. Then I thought about Vanessa's post-it notes and Rick Foster's smug smile. Okay, but we do this smart. No illegal stuff. Nothing that can blow back on us. Agreed. We're going to be the injured parties here. Sympathetic, wronged, deserving of justice. And revenge. Justice and revenge. Sometimes they're the same thing. That night, I went home and played the role of the oblivious husband. I asked Vanessa about her day, listened to her lies about strategy meetings and product launches, and nodded sympathetically when she complained about Rick's demanding schedule. He's really pushing everyone hard, she said as we got ready for bed. But that's what it takes to succeed at this level. Must be exhausting. It is, but it's worth it. She paused, looking at herself in the bathroom mirror. I think this project could really change things for me, career-wise. Change things how? Promotions, new responsibilities, maybe even a transfer to the corporate office. She turned to face me. It might mean relocating. Relocating where? Chicago. That's where the corporate headquarters is. Chicago, where Rick Foster had grown up, where his parents still lived, where he'd always talked about returning someday. That's a big change, I said. I know, but sometimes big changes are necessary. She was laying the groundwork, preparing me for the idea that our marriage was ending not because of her affair, but because of her career opportunities. It was brilliant, actually. She'd get her divorce, her new life with Rick, and a plausible cover story that made her look ambitious rather than adulterous. What about Mia? I asked. She could come with me, or stay here with you, if that's what she wants. We'd work it out. Right, work it out. That weekend, Vanessa went to stay with Linda again, claiming she needed space to think about our conversation. I used the time to meet with Beth and her private investigator, a sharp-eyed woman named Lily Chen, who looked like she could stare down a mob lawyer. Your wife's smart, Lily said, after reviewing the photos and documentation. She's being careful, covering her tracks, building a narrative that protects her reputation. Can you break it? I can break anything, given enough time and money. But it's going to take patience. These people aren't amateurs. What do you need from me? Access. Vanessa's computer, her phone, her personal documents. I need to see her real communications, her financial records, her plans. I can get you the computer. She uses it at home sometimes, leaves it in the kitchen. What about her phone? She never leaves it unattended. Then we'll have to be creative. Lily outlined a plan that was both simple and audacious. She'd plant surveillance software on Vanessa's laptop that would give us access to her emails, browsing history, and any documents she worked on. She'd also set up monitoring on our home internet that would capture any communications sent from our network. Mais la dame de shits. It's your house, your internet connection, and you're married. Legally, you have a right to monitor communications in your own home. Lily shrugged. Morally, well, that's between you and your conscience. My conscience was surprisingly quiet on the subject. The software installation took less than 5 minutes. Vanessa's laptop looked exactly the same, functioned exactly the same, but now everything she did was being recorded and transmitted to Lily's servers. How long before we see results? Beth asked. Could be days, could be weeks. Depends on how much they communicate electronically and how careless they get. We didn't have to wait long. 3 days later, Lily called with an update. I've got emails, she said, without preamble. Lots of them. Your wife and Rick Foster have been very busy. She sent me a file containing 2 weeks' worth of email exchanges between Vanessa and Rick. Reading them was like watching my marriage die in real time. Nah, the early messages were professional, discussions about the product launch, meeting schedules, budget projections, but gradually they became more personal. Complaints about their respective spouses, jokes about being stuck in unhappy marriages, speculation about what life would be like if they were free to be together. Then came the explicit messages. I won't repeat them here. Suffice it to say that my wife had a much more creative vocabulary than I'd realized. And Rick Foster had some very specific ideas about what he wanted to do to her in various hotel rooms. But it was the planning messages that really got my attention. From Vanessa to Rick, sent 4 days ago. A thinks the divorce is about us growing apart. He has no idea about us. I can probably get him to agree to a quick, quiet settlement if I play it right. He's not the type to fight dirty. Rick's response. Good. Beth is getting suspicious, but she doesn't have any proof. I'll start the separation conversation this weekend. By Christmas, we could both be free. Vanessa's reply. I can't wait. I'm so tired of pretending to be happy with him. He's sweet, but he has no ambition, no drive. Being with you makes me remember what I really want from life. I read that exchange 3 times, feeling the cold, hard thing in my chest grow into something hot and sharp. Sweet. She thought I was sweet. I forwarded the emails to Beth and called her immediately. Did you see them? I asked. I'm reading them now. Her voice was tight with controlled anger. They're planning to leave us both and make it look like natural breakups. Gets better. Check the one from yesterday. There was a pause while she found it. From Rick to Vanessa. I've been thinking about the money situation. Between your savings and what I can pull from the company accounts, we should have enough to start fresh in Chicago. A's too trusting to audit the finances, and B never pays attention to money anyway. He's planning to steal from both of us, Beth said quietly. And Vanessa's helping him plan it. That's it. I'm done playing nice. What do you want to do? I want to destroy them both. Publicly, professionally, and financially. Her voice was steady, but I could hear the fury underneath. Are you with me? I thought about Vanessa's post-it notes and her lies about strategy meetings. I thought about 12 years of marriage dismissed as sweet but unambitious. I thought about Mia asking if we were getting divorced while her mother planned to steal our savings and run off with her boss. I'm with you. What's the plan? We're going to give them exactly what they want, and then we're going to make them pay for it.